people talk about dentistry online, it's either presented as this perfect dream career, or people act like it's completely doomed and nobody should get into it anymore. As the wife of someone who's currently in dental school, I just don't think either extreme is the full story. We're living this journey in real time. The stress, the sacrifice, the finances, but also the excitement and the long-term potential. So today, I want to talk honestly about whether dental school is still worth it in 2026, from the perspective of someone who's actively going through it. So something that I think we are still seeing in 2026 and beyond, dentistry is still a respected profession. Despite some of the more extreme ideas or extreme points of view, many dentists genuinely do love their jobs. We know several, I can't even think off the top of my head how many we know, but not a single one that we have talked to before we got in or since has ever tried to dissuade us from going. I think just a lot of times that's what you see online. But I think if you actually talk to people that are doing it, and more than one, you talk to several, I think you will find that people genuinely do love this field and love the work that they do. Watching my husband go through this, even though he's only finished his first year, he can see and I can see why people are so drawn to this career. There's something really meaningful about building skills that actually help people in a meaningful way. You get to develop a sense of community and interacting with people. It still offers a really good life for people, maybe just not quite the same as it did 20 or so years ago. Something to keep in mind though, if you're still deciding if it's 100% worth it, it is a huge family commitment. I'm not gonna sit here and sugarcoat anything. It is long hours, it is lots of stress, studying nights, weekends, the emotions of dad and husband not being there. It is also a lot of financial pressure, not just now while we're in it, but for years after. It is definitely a delayed gratification sort of career path. And for us, do we know about delayed gratification? We are both in our 30s, and as I said, my husband has just finished up his first year. So while we got married and started our life very young, my husband has been in school for several years. He did 6 years of an undergrad, 2 years of a master's, a year of finishing up his thesis for his master's, and also did not get in on the first round of applying to dental school. So we have had a crazy long journey. If anybody's curious, I can get into like more of the details and specifics of kind of why it was drug out so long, but that's gonna have to be another video. But yeah, we definitely know a thing or two about delayed gratification. And I think for us, that's kind of why it's a little bit easier for us to say, okay, we're okay with not making an insane amount of money right out the gate. We're not expecting to come out of school and make $500,000 in our first year. Now that would be amazing. And if anybody could do it, my husband could do it. He could find a way. We have no expectations for that because we're okay with the delayed gratification. We are okay with doing what we need to do to put ourselves in a great financial spot with paying off the student loans before we start inflating our lifestyle, et cetera, et cetera. And so for us, that is something we're okay with. And that's a question you have to ask yourself if you are okay with delayed gratification. When people are having the debate on whether dental school is worth it anymore, the biggest factor that they're always talking about, I have found, is the financial element of it. That honestly is kind of, in a way, what encompasses the whole experience, because you are really putting yourself in a different situation that a lot of people don't encounter. So going into mass amounts of debt for your career is not something to just brush off. It is a really big deal. And especially now that things are changing for the students starting in 2026 and beyond, things really now more than ever do really need to be looked at under a microscope and make sure that it is something that you really, really want to do. Tuition is very expensive. I don't see that coming down anytime soon. Just because we have the big beautiful bill I don't think schools are going to all of a sudden just lower their tuition. It is expensive. With the big beautiful bill, payoff is going to look a lot different now. My next video is going to be breaking all of that down more in depth, but the payoff is going to look very different. And then of course you have lifestyle expectations, and a lot of people wanting kind of this glamorous idea of what they think a doctor's life should look like. And I think my expectations as a wife and mother are going to look a lot different than a 25, 26-year-old single guy that is going into this career. So that's kind of something to keep in mind too, is what are your expectations? And I don't think that wanting to live a certain lifestyle automatically makes it a bad decision, or it's not okay to base things off of that. You just definitely have to approach this with a certain intention. When I was doing a lot of my research before we actually signed the acceptance and moved here and got started, I tried to look around to honestly first find a lot of like family information that I could get, families that were going into dental school or medical school, and see what I could find. And I've mentioned before, I really couldn't find anything. There wasn't really anything to go off of. It was hard to find a lot of the information that I was looking for, just because it's a little bit more of a unique situation. Most of the people that go through are single students, but it was interesting to see kind of like the social media versus reality, or like what our reality will be, or the differences between single student lifestyle and how they can live after school versus a family could live. And so it really just is kind of funny. It's very different. And I would be careful not to base kind of your expectations or your reality too much off of that. There are so many factors that go into what your life will look like after the fact. And social media does not always give the best picture of that. Everybody truly wants to do this path very different as well. You have people that state from the beginning, like, I really just want to be an associate. That's all I want to do. Or I want to join a DSO. That's really all I want to do. That's my plan. That's my goal. I think I would enjoy that the most. And then of course, the people that want to be owners. And I think that you just will never, ever, ever have the same lifestyle or income being an owner that you would as an associate. Not saying that that's wrong or that that's a bad path. It's just then you really do have to manage those expectations and know, like, there will be potentially, most likely, a cap to your earning potential. Whereas as an owner, of course, there is at some point a cap, but are you going to own a second practice? Are you going to start investing in different like startup practices? Like, there are so many options. There are so many different ways that you could go that route to where you don't necessarily have a cap, or if you do, it's way up there. Versus an associate, you're going to have a lower limit to how much you can make. When you have somebody that is up here on their cap and somebody that's cap is down here, but you both owe high six figures in debt, it's gonna look a lot different. And I could see easily how the person that chose the associate route would kind of feel a little frustrated potentially with their lifestyle or their earnings, their income, and how that all looks. And so it just is really something to kind of think about and maybe start planning once you are accepted, or even before, definitely once you're in, start kind of thinking about it, talking to fellow students and just really picking people's brain and kind of seeing what other people are doing. Everybody is so different, and everybody has different expectations and what they want out of this career. And so I think that that is kind of more of the question of, is this worth it to me or not? Is, what do I want my income potential to look like? Do I have the desire, one, and the ability to run something, to run my own business, run my own practice, so that I can have the highest income potential? Or does that not really matter to me? And I really have no interest in ownership, but I am okay with just being an associate. And it may take a little longer for me to pay off my debt, but I love being able to work in this field, and so it's still worth it to me. I think those are the questions that everybody has to ask for themselves. So what is it that actually makes it worth it then? Because I think if you're just in it for the money, I don't think that that's enough. I think if you enjoy the healthcare field, working with people, having autonomy, and really enjoying hands-on work, I think those are the things that are going to be deciding factors for you. I think obviously, the kind of lifestyle that you want to have, what do you want to provide for yourself or your family, all of those things matter, but it is so personal. And you just have to ask yourself if it's worth it to you. It doesn't matter if it's worth it to anybody else. It has to be worth it for you. I want to kind of break it down in a way that we can bring numbers into it to where you guys can maybe kind of see what my expectations are, mine and my husband's, what our expectations are, and what kind of would and wouldn't make sense for us. So if you do a quick Google search and just type in, what does the average dentist make? What is the average dentist salary? The numbers that I got were $120,000 to $170,000. So if we just take the highest end range of that and we work with that $175K, after taxes, you're looking at about $122,000 a year. And this is where I say everyone is different. Everyone's expectations are different. If we're looking at $122,000 salary per year right out of school, and then on the other hand, we're looking at our $500,000 in student loan debt that we have. To me, those numbers just don't personally make sense side by side. If my husband was only ever going to make $122,000 take home pay, I'm telling you right here and now, for us, that would not be worth it. The amount of debt that there is, the debt to income ratio would not make sense. We would not do it. So now here's the thing. That average is so vastly dependent on so many different things. Not everybody lives in the same place. Not everybody wants to work the same amount of hours. Some people want to be part-time. There was a lot of things that we could tweak to make that number look different. For us, where we live, we're willing to live in a more rural area. That's where we came from anyways, and we plan on going back. And anytime you are willing to live in a more rural area, you're going to start out with a potentially much higher salary than people who want to live this big city lifestyle. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but again, it all comes down to what are your expectations coming out. And I think that that is where people are like, why the heck would you go into all this debt, spend all this time just to come out and your take-home pay be $122? Mind you, if you remember, I used the highest end of that. I used the $175. We didn't even talk about what it would look like take-home pay if you only earned $120,000 your first year out of school. That would be very scary. So I think out the gate, you can't expect immediate wealth. So take that off the table. When you do type things in online, you are going to get it could be very inaccurate for you, for where you want to live, for how you want to work, where you want to work, all of those things. For our area, they're typically hiring associates around, I'm just going to take middle of the road and say 220. So some will be a little bit lower. Some I've seen job listings be even higher than that. I'm good with that. And that is a number that we have talked about when it comes to kind of our expectations is, again, us ending this with $500,000 in debt. My husband's going to try, and if he's going to start out as an associate at first, if that's the path that we take, he's going to apply to the places that are base salary of 220, 225, etc. And we're going to shoot for that. Now, if it's lower and it happens to be lower, okay, whatever. But again, we're willing to live in the rural areas. Ultimately, we're not expecting this huge elevation in lifestyle either. Again, what somebody can live off of and thrive off of as a single student, a family cannot. And so for us, we're going to have to be careful and watch for how we're spending, how we're living, still budget, be very frugal, not go out and get brand new cars and flashy this and flashy that. We're still going to have to live very humble. We're going to work on getting ourselves in a position with savings and debt payoff to where then after that's taken care of, then we can do what we want with elevating our lifestyle. So just a lot of things to ask yourself what you're willing to do. Are you willing to sacrifice the big city for a rural area? If not, then are you willing to sacrifice kind of the upgrade in lifestyle because your salary isn't as high as you wish it was? I think rather than only focusing on the money too, I think you do have to look at what kind of lifestyle you want to live and that you'll be able to live, because it can still be amazing. You have flexibility, obviously as an owner. You have schedule control, strong long-term earning potential, of course, and a chance to continue to grow and build over time. And of course, ultimately, you're doing very meaningful work. So for us, is it worth it? Yes. But that's because we have clear expectations. Yes, but financial planning matters more than ever, and we understand the sacrifice. And yes, because our long-term vision still feels worth it to us. I don't think dentistry is this golden ticket career anymore, but I also don't think that it deserves all the negativity it seems to get online. I think dental school in 2026 is still one of those paths that can absolutely be worth it if you go into it with realistic expectations, a long-term mindset, and a reason deeper than just chasing money. I'd love to hear from other students, dentists, and spouses in the comments, because I think these conversations are important. In my next video, I want to talk more specifically about how the Big Beautiful Bill is changing things for incoming 2026 dental students, and why I think families specifically need to prepare differently moving forward. I'll see you there.